One. Let's have a swing out. The battle of the backups has led us to discuss Austin Decalis versus Charlie Heck, and where does Tytus Howard fit in the future plans for the Houston Texans?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Wednesday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp helps you connect with a licensed therapist who can take you on that self-discovery journey from wherever you are. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. I'm John, some sports guy Hickman, and of course, I'm joined by none other than Houston sports media member for the city of Houston, Rockets, Texans. And if you want to know what's going on with the SaberCast, you can talk to him too, Cody Davis, also a writer for Sports Illustrated. Shout out to our everydayers from the Himalayas. For those of you that rock with us every day, make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Texans podcast on all of the major podcasting platforms. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. And, of course, YouTube as well. Make sure you subscribe. Cody, there's a fun discussion that we hint at throughout the year, throughout the offseason. This offseason, we saw the Houston Texans go ahead and get Laremy Tunsil extended. And the conversation back January 23rd was how should the Houston Texans go about the not Laremy Tunsil, Tytus Howard situation? And I said then, Cody, it really depends on how the new coach and coaching staff views him along with their contract. Laremy Tunsil broke the bank, reset the market. When we look at what Tytus Howard, the possibility of a contract, possibility of an extension, the possibility of that not happening, and he'll go into next year as an unrestricted free agent. When we look at Tytus Howard's future for the Texans, what should it or could it look like?
You got to get the deal done, plain and simple. And you now have a potential franchise quarterback. John, what is the one thing a lot of people always talk about when you have a potential franchise quarterback in those first 4 to 5 years? Build around your quarterback while he's still on his rookie deal. Because as of right now, the Texans are on the trajectory to literally build something special around CJ. As a matter of fact, he might be the first rookie quarterback for the Houston Texans who is basically coming in with decent weapons around him. I mean, we talked about the wide receiving core yesterday. We talked about how that can basically be a collective unit. You already know your backfield is set. And of course, you already have your franchise left tackle in Laremy Tunsil. You might as well keep your right tackle in Tytus Howard, who is probably a tier below a Pro Bowl caliber player. And in my opinion, I think if everything works out, especially when you consider the improvements in the coaching staff that is going to take place starting in 2023, he might reach that Pro Bowl stuff. So it would be in the Houston Texans' best interest to extend Tytus Howard as of right now. So, of course, the next question is going to be, what would an extension for Tytus Howard look like? All you have to do is take a trip to Denver and pay attention to the right tackle, that they just signed, and Mike McGlinchey. He was originally drafted by San Fran, played 5 seasons, and him and Tytus Howard is basically the same person. They're both right tackles. They both are that tier below under an all-pro caliber right tackle. Mike McGlinchey, his best on-field attribute is his run blocking. Tytus Howard, his best on-field attribute is his pass protection. Tytus Howard gave up 5 sacks last year. Mike gave up 6 sacks last year. And the only reason why he had to go on and side with the Denver Broncos is because San Fran did not give him an extension. Do not make that same mistake. Mike signed with the Denver Broncos for a 5-year deal worth $87.5 million. So that's roughly around 16 to 18 million over the next 4 to 5 seasons. Tytus Howard, if the Houston Texans can kind of get him on a bargain, I would say a deal for him will probably be somewhere in the ballpark of 5 years worth $75.5 million. You could say maybe 10 million on his contract, and that would put Tytus Howard in the ballpark of somewhere between 14 to 16 million over the next couple of seasons. That would give the Houston Texans the flexibility that they need to continue building around CJ, building on the defensive side of the ball. That would give CJ the protection that he needs, especially on both sides. And you also got to keep in mind this: if CJ becomes the quarterback we think he's going to be, franchise caliber, top 10, in some people's eyes, they consider him a potential top 5 quarterback once he start reaching the surface. In 2027, 2028, it's going to be time to extend CJ. And the way the quarterback market is starting to look as of right now, then the Texans might have to break the bank for CJ, which means if you already got Laramie Tunsil, you already got Tytus Howard, that is going to give you the protection that he needs to start off his career.
You know, the funny thing about Tytus Howard in his situation right now, so we talked about Nico Collins like each year, something's changing for him. So has Tytus Howard, like since he got.
But he's been better though. He's been
better. But his situation, he's been playing everywhere on that offensive line outside of center. He's logged over 700 snaps in 2 positions in the past 2 seasons. So like he has been moved around. He's never been stable for Houston. I think adding the coaching staff and D'Amico and how this team is set up now, I think that this is a perfect time for Tytus Howard to finally get some stability, right? I mean, this team has been very up and down. The foundation has been bad. So with that being said, I think this is the perfect year for both sides. Like for Tytus Howard, I don't think he really wants to leave Houston. This is a great place for him. And when the Eagles drafted Andre Dillard, jumped up and drafted him, we didn't look at Tytus Howard. I mean, I didn't as to what I saw from him last season, where it seemed like everything kind of came together for him, even with the 4 sacks. I like the Brian O'Neill contract for the Minnesota Vikings. He's making about, I will use that as a base of with Houston did not get this deal done before Juwan Johnson went to Juwan Taylor, who went to the Kansas City Chiefs. He's making about $20 million now. Brian O'Neill, depending on the type of season Tytus Howard has, like he can go out there and with a stable line dominate that right tackle position. Brian O'Neill next year makes 19.6. I can see Houston, if he does end off this season with a phenomenal year, maybe getting the Pro Bowl nod, maybe around 18.5 for Tytus Howard. That's a lot of money for Tytus Howard. So again, I always wonder how this team views him. Going out is great for him, but this is also a great opportunity for the front office, Nick Caserio guys, when they got a lot of money coming in next year to figure out what is your worth to this franchise, which is something that Nick Caserio has talked about before.
And I'm glad that you use that as your foundation to say whether or not how a contract for Tytus Howard will look like, because that is why it's so important for them to make sure they get the deal done before the start of the 2023 campaign. Yeah. Because for the sake of this argument, if he goes out and becomes a Pro Bowl right tackle, then you really have to consider what is the realistic or fair market price for him. And the price is going to go up. So get the deal done now. Get him on a Mike McGlinchey deal. Like I mentioned, 14 to 16 million a year. That isn't bad, especially considering that would give you more flexibility to continue just building around your team.
Mike McGlinchey was 5-year with an average of 17.5. I think if he goes out there and balls out for Houston this year, and we'll see what the season is. But if he's one of those type of guys, 17.5 when you're going to commit to rebuilding the rest of this team before your rookie quarterback, it's time for him to get his contract. You build a team like the Eagles did. I wouldn't be mad at it because you kind of help your offense. When you got 2 guys at the ends that can kind of take care of whoever's coming at your quarterback, that does a lot for your offense. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's easy, so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about what you need from yourself. We do it every day. We are human. Listen, you do all of that, you end up feeling stretched thin and burnt out. Guys, therapy can give you the tools you need to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You ain't got to get in your car and waste no gas, man. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime, no additional charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get started. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers out there. If you're watching us, are you at home, working from home? We appreciate you. Listening in the car, at the gym, we appreciate you, our everydayers. And if you are an everydayer, I got a question. Do you have your Twitter or YouTube on dark mode or light mode? Let us know in the comments or tweet us at John_Hickman12 or Cody Davis_24. Cody, so talking about the Houston Texans offensive line and what may seem to be the first priority at some point throughout the season or immediately in the offseason, got to talk about Shaq Mason as well, if we want to be honest. Like, trading for Shaq Mason, he has a year left on his deal. Houston did draft Patterson, and I forget the other young man's name off the top of my head. Juice Scruggs, who is going to be the starting center. Patterson, who would be one of the guards.
Sure about starting center? Oh, I don't know. Competition?
We're going to see. Got to look at the undrafted free agents. Dylan Dethridge, and I can't pronounce the other kid's name, Khalil Zaire. Forgive me. But as of right now, that's a conversation that needs to be had, Shaq Mason. Now we got to look at the battle of the backups. The Texans currently have 5 total backup tackles on the roster, with Greg Little being signed last week. Charlie Heck, a sophomore out of LSU, Austin Decalis, that's currently on the roster. Cody, when I look at the swing tackle position and that debate or who's going to be the backup to who, here's a few important things to mention. Of the 3 with NFL experience, only one of those players have played both tackle positions in a regular season game. 2022, that's Greg Little, though he didn't have the best performances in the world. Of the 2 vets, Heck and Little, Heck has played more regular season NFL snaps, with the majority of those snaps coming in 2021. Heck definitely has the advantage over Little, and I think it's very important to ask, how do we view Heck chances of making this roster, because right now he is due under $3 million this year?
I think it all depends on what do the Houston Texans find more valuable. Pass protection or run blocking. The reason why I'm pointing those 2 attributes out, because Charlie Heck has the advantage with his pass protection. He has graded a combined 70.3 over the last 2 seasons, has only given up 5 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. Littleton, pass protection is his worst attribute. It got so bad at one point during the 2022 campaign, the man averaged a pass blocking grade of 1.5. And you guys know, Pro Football Focus grade every offensive lineman on a scale of 0 to 100. And this man had a pass blocking grade at one point during the season, 1.5. By the way, that was for the Miami Dolphins. We already know what Tua had to go through this past season. Hopefully, offensive line has gotten better, and hopefully he could be a lot safer and healthier, because I still believe in that young man. However, Littleton has always been a pretty good and pretty decent run blocker. At his best season came in 2020, his final year as a member of the Carolina Panthers, and he had a run blocking grade of 66.2. It's going to come down between both of those guys. Who is going to get the nod of being the backup tackle? Let's call it what it is. And this is one of those battles to where nobody's really talking about it, but it's going to be very important.
Yeah. Really quick, I don't know much about the rookie tackles, but we got rookie mini camp coming up, approaching fast, and we'll be able to give you guys more later on those two young men whenever we can. I do think, Cody, the battle does come down to Little and second year man Austin Decalis. Listen,
I think Austin is good.
I say that because I like Charlie Heck. You know, like he's not a starter, but I think he is a reliable backup. Like what Houston had without a Ryder Johnson a couple of seasons ago, I thought that, you know what, he didn't always perform good enough to beat out maybe Tytus Howard for the starting position. But when you needed him to come in and maybe fill a couple of snaps, he was good for both sides of the ball. And that's what it's going to come down to when I look at, you know, Heck is secured in my eyes. But Greg Little, Austin Decalis, I'm not sure Little, who is the veteran, is a clear-cut winner. 2021, Little got the call. He played 6 games at left tackle, 5 games at right tackle. He allowed 4 sacks that year, 35 pressures, and 23 hurries. And I think for Decalis, it's just important to be able to play both of those tackle spots. So looking at Greg Little, he played both tackle spots. Austin Decalis played both tackle spots. In last year's preseason, played on both sides of the ball at tackle. And I think the reason why Little was brought in the first place, as I got here, like he was under Mike McDaniel, so maybe they signed him because he may have some knowledge of what Houston wants to do as an offense. As we got Bobby Slowick here in Houston and Mike McDaniels and the whole San Fran connection there, so maybe that's why he brought him into the building. But I'm not sure, and you know, maybe he helps out in the run game, but Little and Decalis is the battle that I would watch for, because I really do think, even with the making under $3 million, Charlie Heck as a backup, like I would rather have Heck as a backup if Tytus Howard goes down or Laremy Tunsil than Greg Little as my backup. And Austin Decalis is the guy that you just brought in last year. So I think they are looking at him like, just said about Tytus Howard. Will you be here next year? If not, we got somebody already in the building that we've been grooming in the first place. I think the deal should get done if they really want to commit to him, but just if it doesn't, Austin Decalis.
Well, you got to keep this in mind. Austin Decalis, first of all, he's the youngest, so he has possibly the most upside. And 2, he's Nick Caserio guy. Austin is the one that I say, okay, he might be the safest. Charlie Heck, I agree with you. He has been a very reliable backup ever since he entered the building in 2020. More so in 2021, when you had that weird experience where Tytus Howard was left guard, and then when Laremy Tunsil got hurt, he was left tackle. Like, they moved him all around. Charlie Heck did a very good job holding down that right tackle position until they came to the senses and said, you know what, the best version of Tytus Howard is at right tackle.
At one point, Tytus Howard was like a point tackle.
He really was. He really was.
He was a wide tackle.
He was just all over the place. But, you know, once again, the Houston Texans came to their senses and said the best version of Tytus Howard is at right tackle. The best version of Charlie Heck is being his backup. So that's why when I view both of these players, Charlie Heck and Greg Little, that's why I say I think it's going to come down what do they value more. Because even though Greg Little has been god-awful in his pass protection, he has been a pretty good run blocker. And you know that the Houston Texans are going to put a lot of emphasis on the run game. Yeah. Second-year phenom, I'm going to call him, Dameon Pierce. Come on, man. The more holes that you can open up on that offensive line, the better the run, the better the run. The easier it's going to be for CJ. The better the offense, more points, more wins. Come on now.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I think they brought in Greg Little because of his time in Miami, where we may look at that as a similar zone style, you know, whatever they're trying to do in the offense. So we'll see how it plays out in camp.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Wednesday installment of Locked On Texans. please be sure to check out the podcast, the quick hits, everything involved over the weekend, because on Friday, the Houston Texans will start rookie mini camp, which means we're going to have an opportunity to see all of the 2023 rookie prospects in the Texans uniform for the very first time, which includes our guy, CJ Stroud. Speaking of CJ, on Monday at the Houston Texans, I believe this was their 20th annual golf tournament, Cal McNair came out and said that the Houston Texans and the coaching staff are not going to hand CJ the starting job for the Houston Texans in 2023. I get it. I understand it. I'm not going to make a big fuss about it because Cal's way of thinking is similar to what Nick Caserio had to say the night after they drafted CJ. The goal for the Houston Texans is to make sure that you put the best players out there on the field in order to win.
Yeah.
CJ is a rookie. He still has to go through this learning curve. And we've seen this before, I want to say. We've seen it in 2021 with the whole Tyrod Taylor, Davis Mills. And we saw it in 2017. Tom Savage and Deshaun Watson. That era only lasted for what, half a game? But anyways, they said they are not going to automatically give him the job, which is the same thing that they said in Carolina, but by the way, about Bryce Young. I do want to add that.
Cal McNair also came out and said he didn't have anything to do with drafting a quarterback. Hey, man, listen, you got everything to do with getting some money into that building. And CJ playing and being the starting quarterback does more for the fan base than Davis Mills or Case Keenum. I'm glad you come out and say that, but yeah, right.
I wonder how this feels for the players. Like for CJ, how you gonna draft me number one? And even Bryce, how you gonna draft me 1 and 2? And you know, I only like it only from the standpoint it kind of like, I guess, take the pressure off them. Yeah. But I always
wonder, is something that D'Amico has said before, like whoever comes, he's not the savior of the franchise. And so, I mean, it is a good tactic to shield your rookie quarterback. But
and for Davis Mills, like to hear your owner and general manager say this, like, it's competition. You know, it's kind of like false hope. Like, do you really think you got a shot? Like, come on now, like.
Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day with the starting quarterback CJ Stroud. But you know what? Really, it is, and I should close out. But it really
training camp competition.
It really is a good thing. Like nothing should be handed to anybody. Right? Come out there and compete for it. I think good competition is always great competition. So that's my final thoughts on that. But we'll see CJ week 1. Bearing any injury. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texan and subscribe on YouTube under the name Locked On Texans. We are, I think, 13 subscribers away from 3,400, 3,600. So you guys help us get us there.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Once again, that's Cody COTY DAVIS _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.